Hello everyone, Daniel Yuck here. Thank you all for tuning in today. I appreciate you. Today I'm going to be sharing with you all the approach, my logic, my thought process that I take to go about applying stipple, whip, pepper shading. Now within this video, if you have any questions about anything that you see or hear, I'm going to encourage you to drop a comment down below, and I'm going to do my absolute best to assist you in the best possible direction. With that being said, let's dive straight on into this. Where I'm going to begin is with the needle size. You're going to see right here in these clips that I show you that I am going to be using a 3-round liner. Whether you choose to use standard, 00, bug pin, it does not matter. But for me personally, I do like to use a 3-round liner to a 5-round liner. I rarely ever use standard 5-round liners, but I will use a standard 3-round liner when I stipple, whip, pepper shade. So I think this is more of a personal preference thing. Whatever you prefer using on your end, go for that. Once I figured out the appropriate needle configuration, I wanted to get the voltage matched with my hand speed. So in these snippets that you're going to see here, all of them I'm running at 8 volts. So typically now when I am stippling or approaching this sort of shading with a smaller configuration, I am running my machine higher at 8 volts, and that is because my hand speed, I'm matching it to the current voltage range. I used to stipple at 5 volts, but for me I used to have to move my hand really slow to get that nice pepper dot look. I did find over the time of me progressing and growing throughout tattooing, I found that 8 volts sat for me better. And not only that, I did like the way that the 8-volt range of shading looked over, let's say, 5.5 6 volts. So for me, just to reiterate and confirm, I do stipple, whip, pepper shade at around 8 volts depending on the machine that I am using, but typically 9 times out of 10 is going to be at around 8 volts, 7.5 in that area. When I'm actually applying the technique to skin, I'm thinking of just the very tip of my needle. I'm not thinking of lining, the same approach that I would take for lining where I'm moving at a consistent speed from one point to another. This is not that, not in any way, shape, or form. The thought process behind stippling for me, or this style of shading, is to kind of brush the very layers of the skin and kind of build up and layer the shading rather than just applying one solid, consistent, clean line. So I'm going to find a spot that I need to shade. I'm going to figure out the direction in which I need to shade in, and I'm going to begin working the technique. As you see right here, I found the direction. I know the area that I need to shade, and I'm moving in that direction until I've reached the other point. So I start on one point, and I kind of make the downward motions as you see there, and I make my way all the way up to the other point, as you can see right here. And I'll do this, and again, I'm using just the very tips of my needles. I'm not approaching it like lining. This is not that. We're just brushing the skin, and then we can go ahead and kind of build up different gradients and tones of shading doing it this way. Now I want to touch base on the tattoo ink aspect for the stipple, whip, pepper shading approach. Now I myself have used straight black tattooing ink, and I have used gray washes such as the dynamic gray wash, and I have gotten good results with both. I don't want to sit here and say that you have to use one or the other. It's going to be 110% up to you what you would like to use on your end. I think it really is to each their own, what you feel comfortable doing, what you were trying to achieve, what your end goal was. So if a pre-made gray wash set is more appropriate for your shading, by all means, or if straight black is more appropriate for you, then by all means. I really don't feel like there's a right or wrong until it comes down to the application. Meaning, if we're not ready to apply straight black to human skin, I wouldn't recommend doing that, especially if you're not light with the hand and you're not really sure if you're using just the tips of your needles. I would recommend staying away from straight black, and I would also highly recommend to get the fundamentals of stipple, whip, pepper shading down on fake skin. For these demonstrations, I am using Trueskin. I would recommend investing into some fake skin along the way, so that way you can really develop a rapport and understanding of what it feels like to be working off just the very tips of your needles. So using pin style tattoo machines running at 8 volts and using a standard or a 003 round liner. I have also used bug pins as well. They work flawlessly, nothing wrong with bug pins. We can get really good smooth results with those as well. Now for me to determine, like, let's say if I want to use a standard bug pin or 00, for me to make that determination of which one I want to use, I kind of look at the design at hand. So if I'm going to be shading in really tight areas and the tattoo is really small, I may go for a bug pin or 00. But if there's going to be like a bit more shading, let's say like on a forearm or something like that, then I may go with a standard. So it really just depends on the design itself and what I am doing, placement, sizing. So there's many variables to consider which configuration that I'm going to go with at the end, but typically this is a thought process behind that. So I pick the closest needle that I think is appropriate to what I need to accomplish the task at hand, and I kind of just keep it moving. I try not to put too much thought into that, so that way I don't cripple my choices along the way, and I don't fatigue myself early on in the tattoo. So kind of, pick what you need. If it's not appropriate, if you need to get a bigger configuration, by all means do so. So you can adjust accordingly throughout the process. So let's touch base though on the application. So the fundamental and the essentials that I'm thinking about when I'm applying stipple, whip, and pepper shading is I'm thinking about where the shading is going to go, where I want the darker points to be. Not only that, I'm thinking about the direction that I'm going to be shading in. On top of some of those variables, I'm also thinking about just the very tips of my needles, and I'm also thinking of and feeling constantly for, let's say if I'm stippling with very little experience, the chances of you snagging skin is very, very high. And over time, when we do snags, let's say for example you're going to be shading a certain area, let's say your needle snagged about 20 times. So each time it snags, you're going to be creating more trauma than you would have applying the technique correctly. So throughout the time, it's going to start showing within the tattoo, and these snags may create darker areas because the pigment may go more deeper. It may create more swelling in areas, so the image overall may get distorted. So you can get the idea of what snagging can do. So when I am actually applying the actual technique here, when I'm actually shading, I'm very, very mindful of the feel, and I'm always mindful of that tip of my needle. I'm always confident essentially. I don't want to be inconfident. I get a good stretch on the skin, I get comfortable, and I make sure the direction that I need to shade in, I'm comfortable shading in that area so that I can shade from A to B comfortably, and I can do this each and every time I need to apply the shading. I think what really did it for me was getting acquainted and becoming real familiar with what brushing with a tattoo machine felt like, meaning working off just the very tips of my needles. Becoming acquainted with shading is what really allowed me to get comfortable and confident enough to apply it in any manner that I need to achieve the task at hand. I will leave links for you in the description below to all of the gear that I was using in the snippets here, so that way you can check out this gear on your end. I do hope that you can find some use within this video. If you have any questions about anything that you saw or heard throughout this video, I'm going to highly encourage you to drop a comment down below, and I will do my absolute best to assist you in the best possible direction. I also have social medias all under the same name as this YouTube channel. I have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. I would truly appreciate the support on there as well. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for me and ring that bell, as I will be bringing more videos like this for you all. Thank you for tuning in yet again. You have a great day.